You know what's wild? Sometimes you wake up in the morning thinking you're just going to have a quiet cup of coffee on your porch, and by sundown, you're standing in your muddy yard staring down the kind of folks who treat paperwork like a weapon, and you're the only thing standing between them and everything your family ever built. That was me. And believe me, I never thought I'd see the day when a chainsaw would rip through my history or that a blonde bob with a megaphone would try to outmaneuver me on my own land. Let me back up a sec. My name's Jack Coburn. I spent 45 years fixing busted engines. Stacking up dollar bills in an old Folgers can just to buy a little sliver of paradise away from the noise. Someplace you could hear yourself think. My spot was Martin Cabina Boxy. 2-bedroom fortress on 3 acres of riverside. Quiet as the moon. Bought fair and square from an old-timer named Henderson who'd built the place before HOAs ever learned to crawl. He sold it to me with a handshake, a stack of yellowed paperwork, and the kind of look that says, "Don't screw this up, son." The centerpiece? That narrow wooden bridge he built himself in '87, stretching over the river like a backbone. I carved my granddad's name right in the center plank. A reminder, every morning, of the man who taught me the worth of keeping something safe. Those early years, even the worst days felt like borrowed time. I'd wake with the sun just to watch the river burn gold, fish for my dinner, tinker with old carburetors, and maybe, if the wind was right, trade stories with Dave Patterson, a retired electrician downstream, or his daughter Sarah and her kid when they rolled through on weekends. Folks like that, they respect a person's space. They know quiet isn't rudeness. It's just a kind of peace you earn. But peace, it's like blood in the water to certain types. You get too comfortable and something always comes circling. Late September, I was fixing up the bridge, just swapping out loose boards, when I heard those tires crunching gravel. White BMW. Out steps Patricia Whitmore, president of the Riverside Hills Homeowners Association, though. To hear her talk, you'd think she'd been elected queen of the universe. She had that haircut razor sharp, like she'd measured it with a protractor, and a smile so polished it felt store-bought. She hollered across the river, demanding to inspect my property for compliance. Didn't bother stepping on my bridge. Maybe she thought she'd catch the plague. I told her straight, this property's mine, bought it free and clear. Never signed up for her club, never intended to. She didn't blink. Just handed me an envelope and told me I had 30 days to prove I was exempt from her governance. Or else. Her last words before speeding off. We've worked closely with Sheriff Johnson's tremendously supportive. Yeah, that happened. And suddenly, I knew what I was up against. Someone who could smile while planning to take everything you had. The envelope? It was a masterpiece of intimidation, accusing me of every violation under the sun. Quoting municipal codes and HOA bylaws as if they'd been written by the gods. Half of it was nonsense. My place was older than her whole association. But what worried me wasn't what I had in my file sit, was what I was missing. Some stamp or old signature, maybe. Henderson never prepared for folks like Patricia. Couldn't blame him. Who plans for that? Went to see a lawyer, Mitchell, the kind of guy who charges $50 just to sigh at your paperwork. He told me, property laws evolved, Mr. Coburn. Challenging this will cost you maybe 50, 75 grand. And that's if you win. But he let something slip. The HOA had been buying up riverside land for years, using pressure, never cash. Word was a resort was coming. My cabin sat right in the crosshairs. That night, Dave showed up with beers and a stack of Photosa timeline of every cabin, every dock, every change along the river. He'd been documenting it all just in case. He'd seen Patricia's game play out before. 6 families, all gone, forced to sell out for pennies on the dollar after a parade of legal threats and code violations. Sheriff Johnson always sides with her, Dave muttered. You fight. They show up with trespass notices before you can blink. I thought maybe I had a shot, armed with old photos, a clear deed, evidence Henderson built the place long before the HOA. I stormed into Patricia's fancy office and laid out Dave's photos on her conference table. She barely glanced at them. Photos can be faked. We need legal documents. She tossed them back like homework that failed. Our inspectors will be out next week. Full access. Non-compliance means penalties. Or worse. When I left, it hit me. Patricia wasn't just a nosy neighbor. She was running a business, a legal shakedown. My little slice of peace was standing in the way of her big resort payday. Things escalated fast. First, they blocked both ends of my bridge with safety barriers, then cut off my power, then flagged my well pump. I was living like a pioneer hauling water, running a generator, eating by candlelight. Every day, Patricia showed up with a new gadget: noise meters, cameras, air sensors. She was documenting everything, building her case. Harassment had become a science. And then Dave showed up again, looking haunted. Jack, you need to know Sarah lost her house to these people. Same playbook. Violations, utilities cut, forced to sell. Her place is a parking lot now. Worse, Sarah had found the real story. Patricia's HOA was a front for a development company. They weren't just neighbors, they were sharks in suits, snapping up land any way they could. Friday morning, Patricia rolled up with a crowd of officials, cameras, the whole 9 yards, announcing through a megaphone that my bridge was about to be tested for safety. Any unsafe structure would be demolished immediately. The message was clear: sell or be erased. And then it happened, the sound of a chainsaw screaming to life, sawdust flying, each plank of Henderson's bridge torn free and dropped into the river like a memory disappearing in the current. Patricia smiled the whole time, standing on the plank with my granddad's name, just to twist the knife. When I burst out, yelling for them to stop, she hit me with that megaphone. Step back or face more penalties. Her crew was live streaming, painting me as the aggressor. I felt helpless, like she'd killed something that wasn't even hers to touch. But here's the thing about bullies: they always overplay their hand. Patricia thought she could humiliate me into submission. She forgot about the one thing I kept for moments like this: my M60. Yeah, I collect military movie props. But this one was the real deal, kept legal, always clean, always ready. So I went inside, grabbed the M60, and stepped out. You should have seen the change in the air. Patricia's smile vanished, her chainsaw guys froze, and the live streaming phone hit the dirt. You have 10 seconds to leave. I said it in shout, didn't threaten, just let the steel do the talking. After that, I consider this an armed assault on my home. Patricia tried to regain control, shouting about terroristic threats. But the power dynamic had flipped. I told her, you destroyed my property with power tools. I'm defending my home. I tossed a single round at her feet. Just so you know, this isn't theoretical. Her crew scattered. Patricia backed away, voice shaking. You won't shoot. You're just a mechanic outmatched by people who know the system. But I told her, you forgot that some people know how to fix things permanently. For the first time, she looked scared. She left in a hurry. But she didn't come back with cops. She brought a documentary crew, hoping to spin the story. But the moment they saw the M60 and the ammunition belt, they bolted. One even left his camera behind. Patricia stood alone, yelling about press intimidation. I fired 2 shots skyward. Thunder on the river. Patricia wet herself, stumbled into a surveyor's stake, and ended up on her butt, humiliated, her narrative in pieces. That's when Dave and Sarah came running with evidence. Turns out, Patricia's HOA was never legally incorporated. Her paperwork was fake. She'd swindled over 40 families using fraudulent documents and intimidation. Sarah had tracked it all: corporate filings, phony bylaws, every dirty trick. We called the county. Within hours, Patricia's whole operation was under investigation. Prosecutors issued cease and desist orders. Sheriff's Department opened 43 fraud cases. Patricia was about to discover what real authority looked like. That evening, as we rebuilt Henderson's bridge, this time with Dave, Sarah, and her boy helping, I carved my grandfather's name even deeper in the new center plank. The bridge wasn't just wood and nails. It was memory, family, defiance. Patricia had tried to erase us with lies and intimidation. She'd weaponized paperwork. But all she did was remind us why you fight for what matters. The phone rang. Patricia's lawyer, threatening me with charges. I just smiled and said, "Ma'am, I'll see you in court with my lawyer, my evidence, and my constitutional rights." So yeah, that's how it went down. One bully, a fake association, and a community that finally fought back, not just with muscle, but with truth and grit. You ever feel powerless up against someone hiding behind fake authority? Jack's story shows. Sometimes the only thing bullies understand is a show of real backbone. What about you? If someone tried to take everything your family built, would you stand your ground or fold? Drop your take in the comments. Ever tangled with an HOA or a phony official? Share your story. And if Justice the Sweet hits the spot, hit like, subscribe, and stick around for the next story because the system doesn't always win. Not when people fight back.